Hello there and welcome to my Arty Corner here on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining me, where I tend to do a lot of draw along with me videos or art along with me, which is fab because having a go, trying for yourself, trying new things out, seeing how some things that look really complicated when they're broken down into simple steps aren't that complicated. And a lot of art is about practice, 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 keeping going, trying again and again and again, and discovering what works for you. I give my views on my way of working, how I think about things, how I do things, but it's so important for you to work out your own and what suits your own sense of aesthetics and your own self-expression. We're all different, each and every one of us. We all have our perfections, our imperfections, and our bits in between. And I do think that art should be a reflection of who we are. As I'm moving away from hyper-perfectionism and perfectionism to more of an acceptance that things can be good enough, they can be perfect and they can still, or not perfect, there can be mistakes in them or wobbly lines or things that were unexpected and still work out well. But that also puts a stamp of me on them in the same way it does for you. And I think that's the important thing, is to be who we are. But enough of my pep talk, perhaps. I just want to say thank you to everybody who's subscribed. I appreciate you all so much. And if you're new here or you've visited before and you enjoy what you see, then please consider subscribing. The YouTube algorithm likes it, and it's a way of helping to get my videos to others that may find them helpful, useful, interesting, calming, soothing, whatever people get out of them. I've been told many things over the past few months, so it's lovely. And click the bell if you want to be notified when I release videos. I try to do it most days of the week, but life can happen, can't it, to all of us? So this is where I left off in my previous video, and I'll try to remember to put a link in the description if you haven't seen that one, where I'd started drawing a design to go on this piece of paper, which is it's 12 centimetres by 12.5, which is about 4 3/4 by 5 inches in old money. And I want to carry on working with this today with you. There'll be some things here that will be similar as yesterday, because I'm trying out this idea that if I stick to things, to a limited number of things, rather than going absolutely crazy in terms of the number of patterns and designs. I mean, this is only a small area. It's not a huge piece of art at the end of the day, and I quite like doing small pieces of art. They're relatively quick and easy to finish. But there's also that charm of having them, feeling that I can focus on just one or two, or in this case I've got 3, well, maybe 4 different patterns here. Because I've got these here, I've got diva dance around these, I've got my seedy things inside, and then I've got these that look a bit like honesty. The honesty seed pods. Everything's pinging at me. The phone is. I know why, because it's 8 o'clock. And so my phone, or nearly 8 o'clock in the morning, and my phone wakes itself up then. As in, it goes to bedtime mode about 10 o'clock at night, and then about 8 o'clock in the morning it starts to communicate with email and goodness knows what again, and alerts me that I have stuff, which I promptly often forget, for a while anyway, to look at. So so having a smaller area to work in forces me to work with fewer motifs or patterns, and I think that then sets what the Entangled people describe as an elegance of limits. But it's a lot easier in some ways to be creative, or perhaps limiting how many patterns or designs you use forces you to be creative with what you can use. And you're a bit like having a kitchen cupboard. You need to cook a meal, the shops are all shut, and you've forgotten to go shopping, or you haven't been able to go shopping, and you've got some strange items in the cupboard and the fridge, freezer, and you think, what on earth can I cook with this? I'd rather like some kind of pasta, but I haven't got X, Y, and Z. So what can I do instead? And suddenly you become creative with things. Try a dish that you've either concocted for yourself or you've never thought of before, or adapted one that you know to what you have, and are really pleasantly surprised with the results of what you've done, never thinking that you would have done that. It's that kind of thing. Is I've got these things, I like these patterns, now how can I put them together in a way that perhaps I haven't done before, or I haven't used these 3 or 4 motifs together before, so how can I create something that will make them work? So, art and cooking, they're both creative pursuits, really. There are recipes you can follow that guarantee success. I guess if you were to follow and draw along precisely with what I'm doing here, you'd end up with a drawing very similar to what I'm creating. But it's a lot more fun if you put your own kind of stamp on it, your artistic signature, as it were. The kind of drawings I do, particularly the whimsical, stylised ones, the doodly art ones, I suppose you could call them. I'm not the only person doing art like that. But I try to do that art in my own way so that it's recognisable as being me, and being, it stands out as going, oh yeah, I like that particular style of art, and that one's definitely been done by Angela P, me. And that's because I have to be true to myself. Okay, so I've got some lovely botanicals here, but I can't resist putting an arch or 2 in. And I'm tempted to go right up to the edge and have the arch coming in. I think I will. It's unusual for me to go right up to the edge of a piece of paper like this. But I just think it would make sense, as if there's something on the outside of this paper. It's like we've taken a little snapshot of a section of something much bigger. And perhaps that leads to imagination. I mean, if I was of a mind, no doubt I could put another piece of paper next door and draw on those and separate them, because this would continue on and so on, but I'm not of that mind. I know that's something that's done an awful lot in Entangled, but I'm just creating small art, as in small in size, big on detail and so on. And in here I do want to pop in some other arches, and I'm going to put some pointy arches in here. Now I'm just going to eyeball them. I'm not fussy on having them all exactly the same size. Roughly the same shape would do. And there I was very, very cunning. I curved the top of that just a little bit more so it met here, so I didn't have a strange bit straying off in this direction. The rest of that little arch is hidden behind this particular thing here. And what I'm going to do as well is I am going to pop some of these inside. And then I'm going to pop an arcade of arches. I wonder if that's where arcade comes from, as in, like rows of arches together. I don't know, I'm going to have to look that one up. I really am, 2 ticks. This is This is a case for etymology online. It really is. So, arcade. Arcade. Yeah, there we are. I was right. A succession of arches supported on piers or pillars, avenues of trees, any covered avenue. An arcade. A vaulted space. Hey, I can live with that one. And the other one was parade. I do. Oh, it comes from Vulgar Latin parata, which means, or parare, arrange, prepare, adorn. So parades are where you arrange people and adorn them to do something that's, if you think about a military parade, everybody in uniform marching in the same kind of way and so on, and that's often the case in other kinds of parades. There we are. So yeah, so I've got an arcade of arches within an arch. So I love the history of words and language. I really do. I really do find it fascinating. And sometimes I say something or a word and suddenly I think, oh, I wonder if that means this. So there we are. Don't you just love it when everything comes together in a strange kind of way? So I think we'll have another arcade of arches underneath this one. But this time perhaps we'll have some rounded arches. And I'm doing my best to make the top of these rounded arches sit right underneath where these connect. So I'm staggering them compared to the ones at the top. And I'll do the same thing where I'll put little arches behind these in a kind of, it's kind of a blind arcade. In medieval architecture, blind arcades where you've got arches that would have windows or doors in normally, but there's just blank wall behind them. And that's exactly what's going on here. Except I'm going to put a black space in the centre of each one, or the bottom centre, because like this. And I'm going to do the same with these ones, because that may suggest that there is a window or a doorway there. Some sort of entrance or exit, depending on your point of view. Or sense of direction, whether you're going into or leaving. And then up here I've got these little spaces, and I'm going to try to put just some little black V shapes there, which kind of echo or tie in with these underneath, just to add that. And with these ones, I think I will just colour them all black, because there's no way I'm going to get a tiny... Well, I could if I swapped to my very fine pen, but I think I prefer the simplicity and solidity of black there. So we've got a pair of lovely arches, and that means I can't let it go. I need a third one. You know, it's me and my obsession with things of threes. Let's just thicken the outer line, the lower line here. A bit of a pain that this paper curls, but it is what it is. And then in here I want to do something completely different. I say completely different, but I'm going to get my pencil And I am going to draw vertical lines that come off the points of all of these, both the inner ones and the outer ones. And the little boxes I've got may be that little bit different in size. But do I want them joining down? Doesn't matter which way I do them. I think I'll have them... Oh. I'll have them... I'm going to do a zigzag pattern so that the bottom of the zigzag, or one of the points of the zigzag is a better way of saying it, because it depends where you think the bottom is, sort of like sits above the points of the arches behind. There we go. This is a very common kind of pattern in Romanesque architecture, which happens to be one of my most favourites. Okay, I'm going to turn this the way I was working on it, and I'm going to put shadow on these sides, and I'm going to repeat it round. Rather than pay attention to light source, I'm going to use thickness of line and shadow eventually as part of the repeating pattern. Now I've got a tiny little gap there, I'm just going to fill that in. It disappears magically. So I now have this lovely arch with plenty of detail in. I am going to go to my finer pen because I just want to put some fine detail here, as if there's some very fine lines that have been carved into the stone. Just to add some little detail there. And underneath, I'm going to fill this with parallel lines, just to add a sense of shadow there rather than black. So I don't want to put a tiny black triangle in there, that would look confusing, but something a bit different. So I quite like that. And of course that gives me another edge to carry on with other things. So I'm going to pop some of this honesty, and I'm not doing a very good job of getting a thick line there, but it is what it is. Perfectly imperfect, it's good enough, it'll do. And as I often say, if you've been watching me for a while, you know I say this a lot. If you're new here, it might be the first time you've heard this, but at the end of it all, even where there's imperfections like this, once everything's filled in, they become part of the background noise, as it were. It becomes part of the whole, and they don't stand out on their own, by themselves. You can have a slurp of tea, excuse me, Mo. Oh, my first mug of tea of the day. So I'm doing this before I start anything else. It's just after 8 o'clock in the morning. I've got lots I need to get done today. Some work, colouring in, templates for a book, and then I've got a personal project on the go as well, and that involves me having to work out how to use things like Clip Studio Paint in more ways, and how to put text in. As I've discovered, I can turn my handwriting into fonts. How marvellous is that? I've designed my own fonts already. And it's really quite easy. I can't believe it. It's a bit of a cheat. But at the same time, if I'm going to be doing an awful lot of writing or things that I want looking like handwriting, it's not really cheating, it's making use of technology. You know, and we no longer live in the time of Lindisfarne or Kells, the wonderful medieval manuscripts that were handwritten by loads of scribes over a very long period of time. You know, so it's all fun, it's all good. So I'm looking at that and having a whale of a time with that as well. Okie doke, so I have this so far. I do want to add some little bits in that will fill in spaces quite nicely. I mean, here I've got a space that I can fill in. And I think the best thing I can fill this little space in or add something here is one of these little Honesty style seed pods. They're not really, you know, they're inspired by Honesty. But that just tucks in nicely and feels that this arch is going behind and over. There's lots of layers going on. So I'm going to leave down here for a while because I don't know what I want to do here. I am considering having twirly things or little things with blobs on the end sticking out there. But I just want to go back up here because I do want to use another main pattern perhaps. Let's have a look. Because I'm going to use, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this idea, but I'm going to vary it. You'll see what I mean. And this is a favourite kind of motif of mine. So I'm drawing a wobbly outside line, because wobbly is easier to draw than perfectly spherical, and because I quite like curvy wobbly lines. And it bears a resemblance to these then. Inside I am going to fill this with these again. I'm just going to pop them in. These are quite small. I was hoping to do them quite big so that I only had a couple of them in there, but well, as I say, it is what it is now. And then rather than having Diva Dance filling this space up, just going to add some weight to some lines here. I'm going to break this up using lines that radiate from it. And I am leaving a gap in most of these lines. The first one I forgot I wanted to do a gap, so every now and again I'll leave a complete line so it looks like it's part and parcel of the whole pattern, which will sort of please me. So what I'm doing here is, rather than being fixed on filling a shape in a particular way, I'm getting a bit creative with it. So this could be the reverse side of these perhaps, you know, like mushrooms. Or it could be a variation of the same kind of weird botanical thing that grows. Now there, I'm going to fill that in there with black just to help separate this from those. And that actually works quite nicely. I like that. So I'm going to pop in another one of these here to go behind all of these Honesty type pods. And I can let a little bit more of this one show because I've got more space to work with. Again, I'm going to thicken this line while I think about it before I do any work here. So I'm thinking of this as this is the right way up, so this is the bottom. So I'll always turn this round here so I can add some line weight and keep this interesting. And this one is one where I can add these now the way I wanted to at the top. I talk and my brain doesn't automatically kick into gear with what I plan to do. But as I said, it is what it is, and it's all fine and good. It all works out well in the end, and it's a hard lesson to learn, I think, or a hard way of a hard realization, or it's not quite what I'm saying. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Is that I always get to a point in a drawing where I think, what on earth was I thinking? What made me do that, decide to do that? You should know better by now, Angela. And start beating myself up because I don't like what I can see that I've drawn. But I've learnt to keep going, to push through it, not to give up. and just see where it leads. Because once you get past that point and you add a bit more and suddenly you think, actually, that all kind of works. And I go, I'm glad I finished this. Sometimes I'm not entirely happy with what I've produced, but it works out better than I expected, put it that way. And sometimes I'm still not very happy with what I've done, but I put it to one side. I put it in my visual dictionary, my visual reference, my collection of motifs and patterns that I dig into for inspiration when I need to. Or when I find myself constantly working with things that are similar and I'm thinking I need to shake this up a bit. Or when there's a different motif or pattern that I'd like to share with you. Or perhaps I've come up with a new one and I think, hang on, I need to pop that in there so I can refer to it later on. Because that happens as well, is I keep a track of ones I've sort of like created on my own. And so I pop what I've done in somewhere like that so that I can reference it later down the line. Or my, the drawing I'm talking about here. And give myself some time, a day or two or a couple of weeks, or I pop it in there and forget about it and find it, a couple of months later. And I suddenly go, actually, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was. I actually quite like it now. You get bogged down in believing that something you've done is really awful. Can't see it the way other people see it. So the best thing to do is to give yourself some time and space from it and come back with fresh eyes so you can see it as if it's something you haven't created almost. And get a better sense of why other people might like it and you can't see that. Just saying. So I do that quite often, more often than you know. But I also try not to compare my work to what I do now, to where I was, a year or 2 years or so on ago, because it's always a case of discovery and development and trying new things out and really finding where things are that you like, that work for you. And I particularly don't do that where colouring books are concerned, because where I started several years ago is definitely not where I am now. And, the way that I work now is my hand is being gently guided towards doing things in a slightly different way, leaving more open space and not being as fussy, because that is apparently a good thing. Whereas in my personal art, I can do pretty much as I like. So I've done a fair bit more here. I've got the arches done here. I've got this new motif in here. It's new, but it's also not new, because it shares a lot of things, a lot of characteristics with these. The only difference is how I filled in this layer, around the edge. And I've just popped in a few more Honesty and a few my favourite patterns in there. I will want to pop another arch somewhere else just to have that feeling. I can't have this coming out this side, but perhaps I can have one that comes over here somewhere. Maybe I may just leave it as it is, as if it's that, why is that there? What's going on? It doesn't feel that it fits, but it's going off the page. So what's outside? What is this a part of? I don't know. I'll work that one out. For now, I need a bit of a break from this and let my mind trickle on it, and I need to get to other things. So I'm just going to say thank you for being with me. I hope you'll give a go drawing some of these motifs. So I'll put a link to the first part of this in the description below. And take what you will from my witter, my blurb, my encouragement, I suppose, my understanding of things. And Above all else, look after yourselves and find time to be creative. Take care for now. Bye-bye. Bye.